James Edward Binyan, you stand accused of assault, occasioning actual bodily harm, and that you did on June the 14th of last year perform a sterilization operation on a 14-year-old girl without the proper consent of her mother. How do you plead?
Not guilty.
Dr. Fiona Stone, you stand charged with inciting the said offence, that you allowed the operation to be carried out, knowing that proper consent had not been given. How do you plead?
Not guilty.
Mr. Harvesty appears for Dr. Stone, Mr. Kelly for Mr. James Binyan. Prosecuting for the Crown is Mr. Griffiths.
I call Mrs. Eva Scott.
Mr. Justice Campbell presides in the case of the Queen against Binyan and Stone.
What is your religion?
Christian, Church of England.
Take the Bible in your right hand and read aloud the words written on the card.
Oh,
What is it, Mrs. Scott?
I can't read, my lord.
I see. Read out the words on the card, would you, and would you repeat them after him?
Yes.
I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
shall be the truth, the whole truth,
And nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Now, Mrs. Scott, do try not to be nervous. It is very unnerving to stand in the witness box and have to give evidence in front of so many legal people. We all understand that. And do try and speak up so that the jury can hear you.
Now, you are Mrs. Eva Scott,
Yes,
and you live at 44A Shelton Terrace, Fulchester.
yes,
And you have a daughter called Janice, who is 14 and mentally handicapped. Is that correct?
yeah, I've got 4 children, but the other 3, they're normal. I don't know why Janice was...
Yes. Now, does Janice live at home with you?
Yes,
And does your daughter's handicap make her a difficult child?
no.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Well, I don't like...
I don't understand, Mrs. Scott. What do you mean you don't like...
Mrs. Scott, what is it?
Well, I don't like talking about it. You know, Janice not being well.
I see. Well, you must answer counsel's questions.
Well, yes, they said it would affect the way that she behaved. The trouble is, you see, on the outside she looks quite ordinary, but then all of a sudden she'll do something. Like you're in a shop and she's as good as gold, then suddenly she's tearing open bags of sugar. And people look at me and they say, you should take her in hand, you should give her a good hiding, teach her a lesson.
But presumably when you tell them about your daughter's handicap, they are more understanding.
It's none of their business.
Don't you explain her behaviour?
It's not a thing you talk about.
Now, members of the jury, although Mrs. Scott's daughter is in fact 14 years of age, she has a mental age of an 8-year-old. This is all in the medical report, my lord.
Defence admits the medical report, my lord.
Yes, I see.
Now, Mrs. Scott, your daughter also suffers from epileptic fits.
Yes, but she takes tablets for that every day. I was worried, you see, in case anything happened to her in her sleep, but that's a lot better now.
Yes, and every so often you go to the doctor and you get a prescription for tablets for this.
Yes, I used to take Janice with me because Dr. Stone, she's our doctor, and she liked to see Janice from time to time.
Yes, and how long has Dr. Stone been your family doctor?
About 12 years.
Since Janice was 2?
Yes, that's right.
So she knew you both very well?
Yes.
And you trusted her?
Oh, definitely.
Now, did you ever have any difference of opinion with her?
Only the once.
Well, and this was over Janice?
Well, I'd gone to see her, and I was looking tired. It was years back when the 4 of them were little. And she said I shouldn't have had so many children. I should only have been allowed 2. I looked that worn out, you see.
Yes, and did the doctor mention to you then any way you might sort of limit your family?
Well, she said when a woman had stopped having her children, she should be sterilised.
And what did you say?
Well, I was shocked. I said, but that means that's forever. I mean, how do you know you won't want more? And she said, well, there's too many people in the world.
And you didn't try and change your doctor after that?
No, well, I think she was just thinking about me, you know. I looked that worn out, what with the 4 of them, you see.
Yeah, now, when did you last go to Dr. Stone's surgery?
In April of last year.
And why did you go then?
Well, Janice was having a lot of pain with a
monthly periods?
Yes.
And what did the doctor suggest on that occasion?
Well, she gave us some tablets for the pain. Then she asked me how Janice was getting on, and that time she was being a little devil.
In what way?
Well, she knocked her little sister off a wall and cut her leg open. I heard the screaming, and when I run out, Janice was throwing dirt all over her little sister, so Dr. Stone said that we should do something to help Janice.
Help her? Now, in what way help her?
Well, she said that now Janice, she could have babies.
And what did you say to that?
Well, it might sound daft, but I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yes, but now it had been put into your mind. I mean, how did you feel about that?
Oh, I said, God forbid. She can't look after herself, let alone a child. Not for the minute she can't.
Ah, now, not for the minute. Now, why did you say that, not for the minute?
Well, the doctor and the social worker who used to come round and the psychologist man, they said that Janice would get better in time. Not better, you know, because this can't be healed, but, you know, the way she acted. She wouldn't be such a trial, the way she behaved.
Mr. Scott, this behaviour of Janice, was it always aggressive?
No, she's slow, and sometimes she'll just sit and stare. Her eyes are sort of funny, sort of staring at you. And Dr. Stone said that, like, if she was out on her own, some man, he might think she was, like, offering herself to him. And if she had a baby and had to get rid of it, it could affect her in the head, her mind, you see. So she arranged for me to go to the hospital to see what could be done.
Yes, now, what was the purpose of going to the hospital?
To see that they could fit her with something in case anything happened.
Yeah. Now, did Dr. Stone at any time ever mention to you the word sterilisation?
No.
So on May the 12th, you went to Fulchester Hospital and you saw Mr. Binyan.
Yes, that's right.
And what did he say to you?
He asked me how I was coping. You know, he said Dr. Stone had told him that my husband had left me when Janice was 4. So I told him I'd got a part-time job cleaning. And then he asked me what sort of a house I lived in. And then he talked to Janice and he asked her, did she want babies? Well, she never understood, you see. So I made her rocking like that. And she nodded her head and she said, yes, please. But Mr. Binyan, he said she didn't understand. And then he told me he'd had a long talk with Dr. Stone, and he said he wasn't a specialist in mental thing, but from what Dr. Stone had sent him in the papers, he'd read all about it, and from what he'd understood, Janice could never get better, and that she'd always have aggressive tendencies to anything small. So in the circumstances, he'd arranged to make Janice safe so she couldn't have babies, to set my mind at rest so I wouldn't have to worry for a while.
Oh, for a while. Now, what did you think that meant? You wouldn't have to worry for a while.
That he'd fit her with something in case anything happened.
Yes, and when Janice was old enough to decide she could for herself, you know, if she wanted to have a family.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Now, did Mr. Binyan ever mention to you the word sterilisation?
No, that word was never mentioned.
So, Mrs. Scott, you agreed to have something done of a temporary nature.
Yes, that's what I thought when I signed the form.
Was it explained to you that your daughter would have to go into hospital for a short time?
Well, yes, I thought they'd have to put her to sleep so she wouldn't know what they'd done. I mean, she wouldn't understand.
Now, members of the jury, I have here the form of consent that Mrs. Scott signed. You will notice that at the top, this is Exhibit 4, my lord. The form is signed by Mrs. Scott and also signed by her daughter. Now, did your daughter sign this in your presence?
Yes.
And did she know what she was signing?
She can hardly read.
Now, you'll see the second section, members of the jury. The form deals with consent by relative. I, Eva Scott, of 44A Shelton Terrace, Fulchester, the mother of the above signed, hereby also consent to such an operation. And it's dated June the 7th. And that's signed by you, Mrs. Scott. Is that correct?
Yes.
You signed your name,
Yes.
but I understood that you could neither read nor write.
I can sign my name, my lord.
Yes, but you were asked to sign a form that you could not read.
Yes.
Did you say that you could not read?
Yes.
What did you say?
I asked him what was in it. I asked him to read it out to me.
And did he do that?
He read a bit out.
Yes, I mean, did Mr. Binyan read the part that goes, hereby also consent to such operation?
No. I remember the bit up to consent. Then he said something like, that means you agree that we make Janice safe for the time being. Now, I don't remember exactly.
Well, when was the first time that you learned that this operation had in fact been carried out?
It was about 8 weeks later when Miss Adams come to see me. She was a social worker who used to come, only she got took off because there weren't enough people. Anyway, she came to tell me how well Janice was getting on at school. She said she was 10 times better. And with any luck, she might be all right. She might even get married. But she'd have to go away from home, you see, what with the house being so small. And the rows we were having, they were upsetting Janice. And I said, well, there's not any rows now. Not now I don't have the fear of Janice getting pregnant. And she asked me what I meant, and I told her Janice had been taken to hospital to be made safe for the time being. So she rushed straight out to a phone box, and she come back about half an hour later, and she told me my Janice had been sterilised. She said Dr. Stone had told her on the phone.
Yes, and what was your reaction?
What?
How did you feel when you heard this?
I said they've butchered my little girl.
Mrs. Scott, you said that Dr. Stone had been your GP for the past 12 years.
Yes,
Ever since Janice was 2, in fact.
that's right.
It was then that you learnt about Janice's true condition, wasn't it?
Yes.
You were told that Janice had a biochemical deficiency which had caused brain damage, weren't you?
Yes.
You were told that Janice might remain a child for the rest of her life, weren't you?
Yes.
And you called the consultant paediatrician a liar, didn't you?
Yes, well, I didn't believe him.
It wasn't until Dr. Stone told you that you were able to accept it as a fact, was it?
My lord, this...
Yes, Mr. Griffiths. Mr. Harbisty, what we are concerned with today is whether or not proper consent was given for a sterilisation operation to be carried out. Now, is this line of questioning relevant?
Well, my lord, I think it's important to establish the relationship between Dr. Stone and Mrs. Scott and her daughter.
Very well.
Thank you, my lord. What did you feel when you actually knew about Janice?
Well, I couldn't make head nor tail of it. You say, well, why should it happen to me? Why me? Wouldn't you? I wanted to be asleep, because then it wouldn't be real. Because when I'm asleep, I'm dreaming and it's not real. I didn't want to be awake, because then it would be real.
Yes. In fact, you had a nervous breakdown, didn't you?
I wanted to be on my own in the dark. I didn't want to hear people, see them or hear them laughing.
You blamed yourself for what had happened, didn't you?
Well, it's something in me that's made Janice not right.
And over the years, things haven't changed, have they?
No.
No. Did you see your daughter with a boy just before you last went to Dr. Stone's surgery?
No.
Wasn't Janice letting him put his hands inside her clothing?
No.
Didn't you go to the doctor and say, Janice is violent one minute and quiet the next, and you don't know where you are with her?
Yes, I said that.
And didn't you say she wouldn't be able to look after a normal child, so I don't know what she'd be like with a bad one?
Yes, I did say that.
And didn't you say, I found her half naked in the bus shelter and she didn't know what was going on? I think I'll go off my rocker if you don't do something.
Oh, yes, there was a boy. And I was worried, you see, because Janice doesn't know. She wouldn't know what was happening.
No, in fact, you were hysterical, weren't you, Mrs. Scott? And you were making your daughter hysterical as well.
I wanted Janice to be safe.
You were terrified of having another mentally handicapped child in the family, weren't you?
Oh, yes, I was.
And that's why you agreed to take her to the consultant gynecologist to see if he would sterilize your daughter. Isn't that right?
No, that's not true.
No more questions, my lord.
Mrs. Scott,
When you went to see Mr. Binyan, you were in a very upset state, weren't you?
Well, I hadn't been sleeping.
And did you tell him that you sometimes felt like doing away with yourself?
I might have.
And then you said, with this other worry, with the worry of Janice becoming pregnant, I feel I'm going out of my mind.
I don't remember exactly.
And then did Mr. Binyan say to you, in the circumstances, I think we should operate on Janice for her sake as well as yours?
I thought they were going to do something temporary to set my mind at rest for the time being.
And then he read the consent form out to you.
No.
He asked a nurse to take Janice into the other room whilst he explained the nature of sterilization to you.
I went to see him and I started telling him about Janice. And then he looked at his watch and he said he had to go somewhere else. But he said, sign this form and I'll see that we can get something sorted out.
Mrs. Scott, why can't you accept that you signed that consent form with the full knowledge that the gynecologist was going to carry out a sterilization operation?
I love my daughter. I wouldn't have let them if I'd have known.
But what could Mr. Binyan possibly hope to gain by not explaining to you?
Oh, well, you see, she told him, you see. She told him how I felt about people telling you how many children you should have. She told him that I wanted Janice to have every chance in life. But they think they're gods. They think they can ride roughshod over you. The way he talked to me in his consulting room, it was like I was dirt under his nose. He didn't even listen to me. He came out with all these long words that I didn't understand. And when I asked him to explain them to me, he said it didn't matter. Well, what right has he to talk to me like that? Why does he think he's so superior? He's human like all of us in here. But they're all the same, these medical men. They treat you like cattle.
Mrs. Scott, you have 4 children, don't you?
Yes.
How old are they?
David's 16, Janice 14, Sandra's 13, Billy 11.
You had 2 children after Janice?
Yes, before we knew she was ill.
You live in a tiny house, don't you?
Yes.
2 small bedrooms?
Yes.
No bathroom?
No.
A tin bath?
Oh, yes.
The house is damp.
Yes.
What has this to do with the case, Mr. Kelly?
My lord, one of the principal reasons for deciding to operate was, in fact, the great stress that Mrs. Scott was suffering, bringing up 4 children on her own. All this coupled with the guilt about Janice, the worry about Janice, all this added to by the social conditions in which the family were living. It is the defence's case, my lad, that Mrs. Scott had been under such great stress for so long that she was unable to accept in her own mind the responsibility for this sterilization. The stress had, in fact, made her distort the facts in her mind.
Very well. You may continue.
Thank you, my lad. Mrs. Scott, you live in very cramped conditions, don't you?
There's others worse off.
But you have to bring up 4 children by yourself.
Yes.
And you go out to work to keep them.
Yes.
When did your husband leave you?
When Janice was 4.
Why did he leave you?
Well, you see, when he was told that Janice was ill, that she'd never be like other children, he couldn't accept it. Her rocking and her screaming, it got him down and he'd shout at her. She was forever picking up anything she could get hold of and dangling it, just swinging it backwards and forwards and staring at it. Anyway, when he was told, he said he'd always known deep down inside. It's in her eyes, he said. She looks at me like my greyhounds look at me. There's fear in their eyes. They do what I say, but they don't understand. Then he went into the room and he picked her up, and he's a big man, ever so strong. And he just rocked her back and forth ever so gentle, and tears come on his face like a flood. And he told her, I'm not doing no more shouting. I'm not going to shout at you anymore. Then he turned to me and he said, I blame you for this. I never want to see you again. And he packed his bags and he left and never come back. I hope he's dead.
And you've brought up the children all on your own ever since?
Yes.
You can't get much fun out of life.
I live.
Now, what does that mean?
You grow not to expect.
Not to expect what?
Anything.
Anything at all?
No, well, I mean, People are kind, they're sympathetic, but they don't understand.
You mean they don't help?
Well, you don't expect people to get involved.
Do you go out very often?
Not much. I have to keep an eye on Janice, you see. I never know what she might do. I mean, you don't understand. You can't if you've never had it. It's not that you get tired after a hard day's work. You get exhausted and you get depressed because you just go on coping and nothing ever changes. I mean, Janice is the same today as she will be tomorrow, so you just go on and you never know if it'll ever end. So you don't have the energy for going out and getting yourself out of yourself anyway. Even if you did, what would be the point?
The social worker, Miss Adams, did she help a lot?
Oh, yes. She was marvellous. She was kindness itself. She used to come round and talk to Janice a lot and take her for walks. Janice was very fond of her. It was when the authorities moved her that Janice got more difficult. She'd got attached to her, you see. I did think of phoning up to find out where she'd gone after she was moved, but you can't impose on people.
You can't impose on people.
No.
Especially when they look at a girl of 14 who looks normal.
Yes.
Because you don't tell them she has brain damage, do you, Mrs.
No.
Scott? Because you're ashamed.
Not of Janice.
Not of Janice, no, Mrs. Scott, of yourself. Because, as you said, it was something in me made her not right.
Yes.
You blame yourself, don't you, Mrs. Scott? So you take the whole responsibility for Janice onto yourself. You must keep an eye on her constantly.
Oh, yes.
You have to spend so much time on Janice that you have very little time left for the rest of your family, have you?
Not much.
Has it affected the other children at all?
What do you mean?
Oh, come now, Mrs. Scott. It's true, isn't it, that your 11-year-old son developed psychosomatic asthma 2 years ago?
I know. But I have to keep an eye on Janice.
Because she might go out and annoy the neighbours.
She goes in the gardens or she scratches the car. She's even thrown stones through the bedroom windows.
She might go into a grocer's and throw sugar about.
She might.
She might have an epileptic fit.
Yes.
She might go into a bus shelter with a boy and get raped without realizing what was happening to her.
Well, yes, she wouldn't know, you see. She wouldn't know what to do.
And this is why you agreed she should be sterilized.
No, that's not true.
And after you'd agreed to this operation, and months after it had taken place, you get the social worker coming round telling you that your daughter is now much better. That your Janice now has every chance of being nearly normal.
Well, I thought it was going to be something temporary, you see, for the time being. I never agreed to an operation.
Blame yourself for Janice's condition. You knew what sterilization meant, and you knowingly signed that consent form.
I did not.
The blame you felt, Mrs. Scott, for Janice's condition was as much as you could take. You couldn't accept responsibility for her sterilization because you now wonder what will ever happen if Janice is ever able to marry. I suggest, Mrs. Scott, that you are trying to transfer the guilt to Mr. Binyan because you cannot accept that you and you alone are responsible for taking away from your daughter what some people might consider to be the right of every woman, the right to bear a child.
The jury in this case is composed of members of the general public. The Queen against Binyan and Stone will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. Mr. Binyan, a consultant gynecologist, performed a sterilization operation on a 14-year-old girl. He's been accused of doing this knowing that the girl's mother did not understand the nature of the operation. The prosecution claims that he deliberately withheld the information from her. He stands accused of assault occasioning actual bodily harm. Charged with him is the girl's GP, Dr. Stone. After a telephone conversation with the gynecologist, Dr. Stone agreed that sterilisation was the best course to take.
I'd like to call Miss Anne Adams.
The girl's mother, Mrs. Scott, claims that the doctor never told her about the decision and never mentioned sterilisation at any point. Dr. Stone stands charged with inciting the offence.
Now, you're Miss Anne Adams, and you're a social worker, and you work for the local authority.
Yes, that's right.
Now, will you tell the court what happened on the morning of August the 14th?
I went to visit Mrs. Scott.
Now, this wasn't your first visit.
No, I knew the family very well. In fact, I'd visited Mrs. Scott quite regularly over a period of 4 years or so.
Yeah, this was in connection with the social services.
Yes. But I used to go in the evening sometimes to give Mrs. Scott a break if she wanted to go out. That I did off my own bat.
What, you mean you'd stay in with Janice?
Yes, that's right.
You're obviously very fond of Janice.
I still am fond of her.
Now, will you tell the court why you visited the Scotts so regularly?
I thought Mrs. Scott needed all the help she could get.
Yes, and what happened on this meeting on the 14th?
I went to tell Mrs. Scott that I was back in Forchester for good. I told her that I'd been to Janice's school on the previous day and had seen Janice. I said that I had spoken to the teachers and in particular to the new education psychologist. They were trying various new methods out at the time. I told her that Janice's behaviour was now near normal and that she had actually started to read. I said, with care and the right conditions, Janice might be able to lead a normal life and get married.
Yes, and was this when Mrs. Scott...
And this was when Mrs. Scott told me about how worried she'd been about Janice getting pregnant, not being able to take care of herself. So I offered to arrange for Janice to see someone to see if she could be put on the pill.
Yes, and what happened then?
Then Mrs. Scott told me that the doctor had taken care of that for the time being. So I went out and phoned Dr. Stone up and asked her what she'd been doing with Janice. She was evasive at first. Eventually, she admitted that Janice had been sterilised.
And what was your reaction to that?
I was totally numb. I couldn't speak. I managed to say something like, "By what right did you?" Dr. Stone cut me short and said that it had been the clinical opinion of the consultant gynecologist that Janice should be sterilised and that any inquiries should be put to him. Dr. Stone added that the mother had given her consent. I told her I knew that was a lie.
My lord, I
Yes,
must
the
object to that.
assumption is based upon hearsay, becoming an admission.
I'm sorry, my lord.
Yes, now, what happened next, Miss Adams?
I went back to Mrs. Scott and discovered she knew nothing about it, so I went to Fulchester Hospital and spoke to Mr. Binyan. I asked him by what right he had performed the operation. I asked him if he had followed Janice's case, how with special treatment she was getting better. Mr. Binyan said I was a hypothetical young woman and I was wasting his precious time.
Thank you, Miss Adams.
Miss Adams, when you visited Mrs. Scott, you were enthusiastic about her daughter's recovery.
It was marvellous to see Janice being cured.
Are you an expert in the syndrome that Janice suffers from?
No.
And yet you were able to tell her mother that Janice was getting better, being cured.
I was able to tell her that the severe maladjusted behavioural problems were being systematically cured, yes.
Cured sounds medical, doesn't it? As if the dead brain cells were coming alive again. As if the syndrome Janice suffers from were disappearing. You didn't mean that, though, did you?
No, I didn't.
It might have sounded that way to Mrs. Scott, however, don't you?
Janice is getting better.
It was after this that Mrs. Scott told you about her worries about her daughter getting pregnant,
Yes.
And you offered to arrange something, and Mrs. Scott told you that Janice had been to the hospital and had been made safe for the time being.
Yes.
Did you suspect sterilisation straight away?
Yes.
Why?
Why else would Janice have gone into hospital?
And you thought Dr. Stone capable of recommending sterilisation without telling the mother?
Yes.
Did you think that because you dislike her?
What do you mean?
Has she ever done this sort of thing before?
No.
No. So you thought her capable of deception because you disagree with her views?
That makes it sound petty.
Yeah, sometimes the truth is petty, Miss Adams. Did it never occur to you that your wonderful news about her daughter's recovery might have made Mrs. Scott frightened to tell you the truth?
Mrs. Scott did not know.
You suspected straight away, didn't you?
Yes.
Then why didn't the girl's mother?
Mrs. Scott's got too many worries. She probably put it to the back of her mind.
You rushed out of the house and you phoned Dr. Stone. Then you rushed back to Mrs. Scott and you told her that her daughter had been sterilized.
Yes.
Just after telling her that the daughter was being cured.
That isn't what I said.
I suggest if you hadn't told her that Janice was getting better, she would have told you all about the sterilization.
She didn't know.
Oh, yes, she knew. She knew because both the doctor and the surgeon told her. But you, arriving with some news of a miracle cure, totally unbalanced her. Your news made her block out from her mind a fact she could no longer face, to make her life a bit more bearable. Wouldn't you say that was right?
I'm not a psychiatrist. Are you?
No, Miss Adams. But there is such a thing as common sense.
Mrs. Scott did not know.
Now, you are Charles Brooks, and you're the headmaster of Southward, a school for educationally subnormal children.
That's correct, yes.
Now, have you at any time spoken to Dr. Stone?
Just a moment, Mr. Griffiths. Mr. Brooks, what sort of child attends your school?
Well, madam, we have three main categories. They're the educationally subnormal. These children have no brain damage, simply a low IQ. Some of the children have an emotional or personality disorder. These are the mentally ill. And then there are the mentally handicapped, children with actual brain damage.
Now, what about Janice?
Well, Janice was in the latter category. She was born with a biochemical abnormality that damaged her brain.
Well, you may continue, Mr. Griffiths.
Thank you, my lord. Mr. Brooks?
Oh, you asked me, had I spoken to Dr. Stone? Yes, I've had 2 or 3 conversations with her over the last 4 years that Janice has been at my school.
Yes, and were you informed about this sterilization?
Only afterwards.
And did you speak to Mrs. Scott?
Yes. Yes, Mrs. Scott came to see me and talked about Janice being unable to take care of herself with men. I said there was very little likelihood of any harm coming to Janice. I mean, she was brought to school and taken home again by her mother. But Mrs. Scott was worried in case she became ill. And Janice had been out several times while Mrs. Scott was busy in the house. I advised her to go and have a talk with her doctor, and it was subsequent to this that Dr. Stone telephoned me. Frankly, I thought the home conditions were greatly responsible for her behavioral patterns and her retardation.
Yes, but Mrs. Scott is a loving mother, yes?
Oh, yes, but you see, this is very difficult. You see, Mrs. Scott is a good and kind woman, but with a girl like Janice, this isn't enough. You see, Mrs. Scott still treats Janice like a little girl. She does everything for her. This makes her inactive, and that's the last sort of thing she needs.
Yes, now, did Dr. Stone tell you why she wanted to know how Janice was getting on?
Yes. Apparently, Mrs. Scott had been to her surgery and told Dr. Stone that she was worried about her daughter becoming pregnant. Dr. Stone then phoned me and said she was considering a recommendation for Janice to be sterilized.
And what was your reaction?
I was very angry. I thought it was ridiculous. I said it was Mrs. Scott who was the problem, not Janice. I said, so far from thinking about sterilization, we should be thinking about moving Janice to a residential school.
Yes, now, what kind of treatment was she getting at your school?
Well, we have an American educational psychologist with a lot of new ideas about treating brain damage from a non-surgical standpoint.
And you explained this to Dr. Stone?
Yes, I did. And Dr. Stone said that Janice wouldn't respond because she was too old.
Was the doctor right on this point?
No. No, Janice was responding very well. I mean, she's able to swim, she can ride a bike, she can ride a horse. Oh, yes, and she's even begun to read.
Yes, do you think it possible that Janice has improved since the operation because Mrs. Scott is less worried and therefore home life is easier?
Oh, no, my lord, that is not my opinion. I mean, the operation was totally unnecessary. Janice is going to grow up into a near normal young woman.
Now, what new method of treatment has your educational psychologist brought with him?
Well, it isn't new, but he's brought a great deal of freshness and enthusiasm. You see, by studying the behavioral patterns of the normal child, he's been able to emphasize the importance of physical growth. For instance, creeping, crawling, are vitally important to the child. And if a child is denied these things, then its development is severely limited. So, for a start, we have a great deal of physical activity now in our school.
I see.
And in addition to this, there's a form of brainwashing going on. Cards are read out with letters, and then words, and then rhymes. And these are read out to the child until the child begins to respond. And this goes on hour after hour.
Without a break.
Yes, yes. A teacher may be given a rest, and another teacher take his place.
But doesn't the child get distressed?
Yes, indeed. This is one of the criticisms, that the method is cruel. But it works.
No more questions, my lord.
So, Dr. Stone didn't tell you when she finally decided to recommend sterilization.
I've already said.
Should she have done?
Certainly.
Why certainly? She'd consulted a gynecologist. It was their joint clinical decision that this operation should take place. You're not a medical man, are you?
No, I'm not.
No, indeed.
But this wasn't a medical decision they were taking.
Really?
I mean, if sterilization had been the treatment of choice for some disease, well, then, of course, you're right. I'm not qualified to make a decision.
Well, no.
But there was no question that Janice's physical or mental health would be harmed or deteriorate if the operation wasn't carried out. I mean, this wasn't a eugenic operation. This was carried out for social or behavioral reasons. Social expediency, if you like.
Not quite correct, Mr. Brooks. Both Dr. Stone and Mr. Binyan believe that there was a possibility that Janice might pass on her biochemical abnormality to her children.
A possibility? You say a possibility. So you carry out a serious, irreversible operation because of a possibility? Now, I believe there was no eugenic justification for sterilizing a girl of 14. It's a gross violation of human rights.
You'd rather inflict severe handicaps on the children that are born, would you?
I am very suspicious of any attempts to improve the strain of the human race. It smacks to me of the super race mentality.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Brooks.
We all know what happened in Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. No further questions, my lord.
Well, you may stand down, Mr. Brooks.
My lord, I do have the girl, Janice Scott, here, but I don't propose to call her myself. However, I'm quite prepared to tender her to my learned friends.
I don't wish to call her, my lord.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes, I would like to question her, my lord. I call Janice Scott.
She won't do you any good.
We'll see.
Why do you think I haven't called her?
Now, Janice, you are going to be asked some questions.
Yes,
And you must answer them truthfully.
yes.
Do you understand what the truth is?
Not fibbing.
Very well.
Will you repeat these words after me? I promise before Almighty God
I promise before Almighty God
to tell the truth,
to tell the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Very well, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, my lord. You are Janice Scott. You are 14 years of age, and you live with your mother in Shelton Terrace. Janice? Did you hear me, Janice?
Yes?
Now, Janice, I'd like you to cast your mind back to the day you visited the hospital. You went with your mother, and you saw Mr. Binyan. Now, firstly, Janice, was your mother very upset?
My lord, Mr. Kelly is leading the
I'm sorry,
witness.
but I'll rephrase that. Janice, what state was your mother?
Lord, by asking what state the mother was in implies that she was in some condition of distress.
Usher, pick it up. Janice, are you all right? Now, do you remember going to see Mr. Binyan and afterwards going into hospital for a short time?
Funny.
What's funny?
Father Christmas without his beard.
It is really rather a funny way to dress. But thank you for coming, Janice. I shan't be asking you any more questions. You may go. Take her away.
That concludes the case for the prosecution, my lord.
Dr. Stone, will you tell the court, please, what happened on the evening of the 28th of April?
Mrs. Scott came to my surgery. She was hysterical. She told me that she'd been cleaning the house and suddenly realized that Janice had gone out. Well, she found her about 10 minutes later in a bus shelter with a boy. She said that she thought nothing had happened. Well, anyway, she thought nothing serious had happened. But she had talked to Janice, and all she'd got back was an insolent grin.
An insolent grin? How did you account for that?
Well, I thought that the mother's hysteria had totally confused the girl, and she had no real understanding of what had happened. Mrs. Scott told me that Janice had been sitting opposite this boy on a bench with her feet up. Her dress was right up above her thighs, and she'd been looking at the boy as though she were offering herself. Well, I explained to Mrs. Scott that Janice's mental handicap took away some of the inhibitions that we might feel. She was probably just looking at the boy because she thought he was curious. I suggested that she should keep a close watch on Janice, but she said she couldn't keep her from getting out sometimes. She was terrified that her daughter might get raped,
Yes.
or even that she might just let something happen.
Now, did you suggest sterilization?
No, not at that point, no. We discussed contraception, in general terms.
How did Mrs. Scott react?
She said that she didn't want Janice ever to have a child.
Did she say why?
Well, in case it was mentally handicapped.
Were you able to allay her fears on these grounds?
My lord.
I'll rephrase the question, my lord. Did you speak to her about her fears?
No, because there was a chance that she might pass on her biochemical deficiency. Mrs. Scott said that Janice would never be able to look after a child if she had one. I think she's already told you of Janice's aggression. Well, she might even have been capable of killing any child that she had. I have been closely connected with Mrs. Scott's family, with her many difficulties and problems over many years. Her son Billy has psychosomatic asthma. Now, this condition is not improving. Her other son, David, had just been caught stealing. It was then that I put it to Mrs. Scott that it would have been better for all of them, or for the good of the whole family, in fact, if Janice had been put into a residential home. I'm afraid she wouldn't even consider this. I said that I knew that Janice was having behavioral problems at school, and it was then that I suggested she should go and see a gynecologist.
Now, did you explain to Mrs. Scott what you had in mind?
Yes, I said to be sure we should let them operate. I put it in simple terms. It was just a matter of cutting some tubes.
Thank you, Doctor.
I have no questions, Blood.
Just a matter of cutting some tubes. Now, did you ever mention the word sterilization?
No, not at that time.
Well, why not?
Because I thought I'd made myself clear.
Well, you obviously hadn't.
I spoke to Mrs. Scott after she got back from the gynecologist. I asked her then if she really understood the nature of the operation.
Yes, but did you use the word sterilization?
Yes, on that occasion.
Did you say that this will be forever and ever, and that no matter what miracle cure science might come up with for the mentally defective, your daughter will be barren forever?
No, I don't believe I did speak in those terms.
You would remember if you had.
If I'd used such flowery and emotional language, I think I would have remembered, yes.
Did you, in more down-to-earth terms, explain to Mrs. Scott that her daughter would not be able to have kids, ever?
I asked her if she understood the nature of sterilization. She said that she did, and she was quite happy about it.
Now, Dr. Stone, some years ago, did you suggest to Mrs. Scott that she should have only had 2 children?
I've said it to her many times.
And did you also suggest that she should be sterilized?
I told Mrs. Scott that when a woman has finished having her family, it can do no harm.
So, having failed with the mother, you were determined to succeed with the daughter.
Oh, really, my lord, I must protest.
That's nonsense.
I suggest, Dr. Stone, that when Mrs. Scott came to you, you panicked her into agreeing to something that she did not understand.
I did not.
I suggest that when Mrs. Scott saw you on the 28th, she was quite calm.
No, she was hysterical as soon as she came into my surgery. I had to send Janice out of the room.
She mentioned the incident in the bus shelter in passing.
It was her main reason for coming.
And it was you that told her that Janice could not help herself and that there was a possibility that Janice might have a baby that she could not look after.
No, she was hysterical.
You told Mrs. Scott if her daughter were raped,
it was Mrs. Scott who first brought up the subject of rape. She said that she was terrified of that happening to her
You
daughter.
said any child that Janice might have would be mentally deficient and Janice would probably kill it. You also suggested that an abortion might harm Janice.
All those things are true.
I see. So having whipped Mrs. Scott up into hysteria, you calm her down by wrapping the sterilization operation up in euphemisms like, we'll take care of things for the time being, just a question of cutting some tubes.
A moment, Mr. Griffiths. Now, Dr. Stone, in his evidence, Mr. Brooks mentioned that you'd telephoned the school.
Yes, I did. I wanted to find out how she was getting on, generally speaking.
And did you mention the proposed sterilization?
Yes, I said I was recommending such a case.
And Mr. Brooks was very much against it.
Yes, he was, but it was a very emotional reaction, and I simply do not think that this is a subject one should get emotional about.
It is very difficult to keep emotion out of such an issue, Dr. Stone.
Yes. What I mean is, Mr. Brooks, he is not a medical man. He overreacted on the telephone. He became all emotional. I wanted to discuss this thing with him from a medical and a social point of view, but he wasn't interested. He wouldn't listen. To him, it was a moral issue.
But did you agree to telephone him if you decided to take any action?
Yes, said I would inform him of any decision I thought to be necessary.
And did you do so?
Yes, I wrote to him.
Yes, Exhibit 1, my lord. Now, is that a copy of that letter?
Yes?
And when's it dated?
Oh, the 16th of August.
Yes, some 10 weeks after the operation. A few days after the social worker, Miss Adams, had brought this whole ridiculous issue into light. Did you intend to hush that operation up, Doctor?
I did not. Neither did I wish for a protracted confrontation with Mr. Brooks, whose opinions I neither hold or respect.
The jury in this case is composed of members of the general public. The Queen against Binyan and Stone will be concluded tomorrow in the Crown Court.
I call James Binyan.
Today in the Crown Court, a consultant gynecologist and a family doctor stand trial on a serious charge. A charge of assault and occasioning actual bodily harm has been brought against Mr. James Binyan, consultant gynecologist at Fulchester General. Dr. Fiona Stone is charged with having incited the crime. In June of last year, Mr. Binyan performed a sterilization operation on a 14-year-old girl. The mother claims that both the doctor and the surgeon deliberately withheld the true nature of the operation. Mr. Binyan is being questioned by his defense counsel.
Mr. Binyan, can you tell us what happened on the morning of the 12th of May?
I can tell you that I think this whole business is ridiculous.
What was that?
This whole elaborate legalistic game. Of course I'm not guilty. Of course the doctor isn't guilty.
That is enough.
The whole thing is a total charade, a total waste of time.
Mr. Binyan, I realize that you are at the top in your own profession, but that will not deter me for holding you in contempt if you continue in this manner.
It's just that having spent half a lifetime training to be a surgeon, that is where I should be. Today, for example, I have an operating list which would take me through until late tonight.
If you will answer counsel's questions properly, less time would be wasted.
I doubt it.
That is quite enough.
I'm sorry, my lord. It's just that sitting in the dock for such a time, listening to so many misrepresentations of the truth.
Very well. Now, answer the question.
What was it?
Can you tell us, Mr. Binyan, what happened on the morning of the 12th of May?
I received a call for an emergency operation at 2 a.m. I got back home at 6:30. I slept till 8. I had 2 consultations at 10 a.m., and my operating list took me through the rest of the morning.
May I lead, my lad?
I will do it for you, Mr. Kelly. Now, did you see Mrs. Scott that morning?
I did.
Will you please tell the court what happened?
Dr. Stone had asked me to see Mrs. Scott and her daughter, Janice. Dr. Stone had said that, in her opinion, a sterilization operation on Janice was advisable. Janice had shown symptoms of clumsiness, behavioral problems. This included emotional instability combined with aggressive tendencies and of course, permanent impairment of mental functions. As you know, she was also an epileptic. I considered that if she became pregnant, an abortion would do Janice much harm. If she was allowed to have the baby and it were taken away from her, again I considered it would do her mental harm. If she kept the baby, then I considered she would neither be able to look after it, nor would the baby be safe. I also believed that there was a high chance of Janice producing a very abnormal baby.
You mean more severely handicapped than the girl herself?
Yes, that is what I believed. I took all these considerations, put them together, and decided that I should go ahead and sterilize Janice. As a fair percentage of illegitimate pregnancies occur in 13, 14, 15-year-olds, and considering the social conditions in which Janice lived, I decided I had no choice. And the mother had said that sometimes she felt like doing away with herself, as she put it. I also felt there was a great danger if Janice became pregnant, that her mother might turn words into action.
Did you explain the nature of the operation to Mrs. Scott?
Yes, I did.
And are you quite sure that there could be no doubt?
But?
Well, no doubt that she understood.
Oh, quite sure.
You're not a patient man.
I don't tolerate fools easily.
You didn't take for granted too much medical knowledge.
No, I did not.
Perhaps you were impatient in your explanation.
No, I wasn't. No, you misunderstand. I greatly admire Mrs. Scott's fortitude, bringing up 4 children on her own in such difficult understatement circumstances. I don't like this trial because if I'm found not guilty, then the responsibility will be on Mrs. Scott. And she can't cope with that. She needs some responsibility pushed onto somebody else. I'm a surrogate husband, if you like. No, I told Mrs. Scott that I wanted to sterilize Janice. I told her she would not be able to have babies. I told her categorically, and I was patient. I am only impatient with people who practice semantic legalistic monopoly.
Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, my lord. I'm very much obliged to your lordship. Mr. Binyan, did you wrap up the facts in euphemistic terms at all?
Yes, when Janice was in the room. I told her that I wanted to do something to put Mrs. Scott's mind at rest. And then when Janice left the room, I explained.
Now, how can you be sure that Mrs. Scott fully understood?
Because Mrs. Scott told me she didn't want Janice sterilized because she was frightened. So she said she couldn't cope with it. She said that it was her fault that Janice was handicapped. She said she wouldn't accept the responsibility for doing her any more harm. I tried to set her mind at rest by telling her there were therapeutic reasons for carrying out the operation.
Thank you, Mr. Binyan.
Mr. Harbisty.
No questions, my lord.
Mr. Griffiths.
Thank you, my lord. Now, Mr. Binyan, you wouldn't perform a sterilization operation on a girl of 14 lightly.
Do I have to answer that?
Yes, you do.
The answer is self-evident.
Well, would you or wouldn't you?
What do you think I am, a butcher?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
My lord, that remark is quite unjustifiable. My learned friend is
Now, Mr.
indulgent.
Binyan, Mr. Griffiths, I must ask you to conduct yourselves with due regard to this court. Now, this is a very emotive issue. Will you please try and keep it in the right tone?
Yes, I'm sorry, my lord.
No. I would not carry out a sterilization operation on a girl of 14 lightly.
So what made you carry out this operation?
My lord, I've already gone to the reasons. Do I really have to repeat them?
What was the purpose of your question, Mr. Griffiths?
I was just coming to it, my lord. Now, this meeting you had with the mother and daughter, how long did that last?
I didn't time it.
Well, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, a week.
About 15 minutes.
15 minutes? And you decided to operate?
Yes.
You have a meeting with the mother and the daughter, which lasts 15 minutes, and then you decide to carry out a sterilization operation?
Yes.
15 minutes of your time to decide the fate of a young girl's life?
Half a lifetime's training to be competent to make that decision.
Well, don't you ever worry about the consequences of your decisions, Mr. Binyan?
Don't you ever worry that you've had an innocent man convicted?
Well, in your vast professional experience, was 15 minutes long enough?
Of course I used Dr. Stone's knowledge of the background to guide me. Dr.
Yes?
Stone had known Janice since she was 2. She'd worked alongside the consultant pediatrician when the biochemical abnormality was discovered. She knew her home circumstances and her school circumstances.
And did you explain to Mrs. Scott you were going to carry out an operation that could not be reversed?
I don't think I said that.
Did you tell Mrs. Scott that... You mean you didn't say... She didn't know what you were doing?
I used simple language.
What, euphemisms to wrap up the true nature of the operation, eh?
I told the woman her daughter would not be able to have babies.
You'd made that decision to operate before you saw Mrs. Scott, hadn't you?
No.
Dr. Stone said she thought she should be sterilized, didn't she?
Yes.
During this telephone conversation you had with her?
Yes.
And did she go on to say that Mrs. Scott doesn't like the idea of sterilization? We'd better keep it quiet for the best.
No such conversation took place.
But you did have a conversation?
Yes.
With Dr. Stone?
Yes.
You're not denying the telephone conversation?
Dr. Stone did not suggest that I should hide the nature of the operation.
Oh. Well, what did she suggest? That you wrap it up a bit, eh?
This is a totally unnecessary interrogation. It is an interrogation, isn't it?
Now, did you rush Mrs. Scott?
No, I did not.
Now, look, Mrs. Scott comes to see you. You have a little chat with her. Then you send Janice out of the room and you talk about Janice. And then you decide to operate. Now, did you have this form of consent to hand?
They happen to be kept in my desk.
I see. So you get Mrs. Scott to sign it, and then after you've read out the whole form, presumably, and you'd have to show her where to sign, then you bring the daughter in and you explain to her what's going to happen, just so that the mother and daughter can share in what's going to happen.
Yes.
And you did all this in 15 minutes?
Yes.
And you're quite sure you didn't rush Mrs. Scott?
Quite sure.
Quite sure you didn't take too much for granted?
Quite sure.
I suggest you gave Mrs. Scott a lot of complicated reasons for doing something to her daughter.
For sterilizing her daughter.
I'm sorry, my euphemism.
There were many factors.
Well, did Mrs. Scott understand everything?
Yes.
You're quite sure?
I phoned Dr. Stone and asked her to go over the points again.
So you weren't sure Mrs. Scott understood?
Yes, I was sure. I merely wanted to settle any qualms she might have.
I suggest you phone Dr. Stone and told her not to mention the word sterilisation.
You can suggest what you like.
Now, Mrs. Scott was upset when she came to see you, wasn't she?
Yes.
Now, did you look at your watch?
What?
During the interview?
I don't remember.
Several times.
I had an operating list.
So you did look at your watch?
I may have done.
Did you tell Mrs. Scott you were a busy person?
No, I did not.
Did you tell her you didn't have much time?
I told her I wanted to make sure that everything was clear in the short time that I had available.
But you didn't rush Mrs. Scott.
No, I did not.
You didn't ride roughshod over her. Those are Mrs. Scott's words.
No, I did not.
You didn't act as if you were God, Mrs. Scott's words.
No, I did not.
You didn't talk as though she were dirt under your nose, Mrs. Scott's words.
I did not.
You didn't say we'd better make Janice safe and then you won't have to worry for a while, Mrs. Scott's words.
I did not.
Giving her the impression that what you were doing to her daughter was of a temporary nature.
I wouldn't risk my professional status by such a deception. I have already told you. It was a transference of guilt, not that Mrs. Scott has anything to feel guilty about.
Oh, well, I believe you, Mr. Binyan, that you wouldn't risk your professional status. But you thought you were above the law, didn't you? You played at God, Mr. Binyan. Now, you didn't perform this operation for therapeutic reasons, did you?
It was my clinical judgment that if Janice became pregnant, it would do her great harm.
But you didn't carry this operation out to cure any disease. There's no doubt about that, is there?
From the point of view of preventive medicine, I took a medical decision.
Mr. Binyan, I ask you again, did you carry out this operation for therapeutic reasons? No. You did it in order to stop a young girl becoming pregnant?
Yes.
And as you put it, you thought she might become pregnant. Because, as you say, a fair percentage of pregnancies occur in 13, 14 and 15-year-olds.
Yes.
Well, that simply is not correct, Mr. Binyan. In 1973, 3%, is that a fair percent? 3% of pregnancies outside marriage were to girls under 16. 5,136 out of a grand total of 180,000.
Because of her mental handicap, Janice was extremely vulnerable.
I see. Well, why not something else for the time being until she was old enough to decide something for herself? I mean, why not some form of contraception, like the pill?
We didn't think we could rely on Janice taking it every day.
But she was taking tablets at school for her epilepsy. The teachers were giving them to her at lunchtimes.
There might have been objections on moral grounds.
But did you phone the school up and find out?
No.
Why not?
Because I took a medical decision on preventive grounds.
You weren't just trying to keep this operation between you and Dr. Stone, were you?
I have already said there was a great danger of Janice giving birth to a very abnormal baby.
Well, on what basis do you have that finding?
On the facts.
What facts? Are they tangible? Cases followed through? Or just supposition?
How do you mean?
Have you followed up cases like this?
I am not an expert in genetics. I consult my colleagues.
You are not an expert in genetics, and yet you carry out an operation for eugenic reasons. Are you a fascist, Mr. Binyan?
I am not a fascist.
They carried out operations like this to create a super race.
We are not in fascist Germany. I believe that in an ethical society such as Britain, one can talk about eugenic operations. It should be one of the aims of medicine to reduce the incidence of congenital malformation. That isn't to create a race of supermen or to purify the stock. It should be one of the aims of a caring society. We are already trying to reduce spina bifida and Mongolism. There is no difference in principle between them and this sterilization.
Are you sure you're not a fascist, Mr. Binyan?
I fought in the last war.
Oh, did you? On whose side?
Oh, William, Mr. Griffiths.
Now, Mr. Binyan, what you're saying is that you believe that similar operations should be carried out on young girls that risk passing on Mongolism or spina bifida.
Yes, of course. without wishing back the last century with its tuberculosis and recurrent epidemics and fevers. It was the survival of the fittest, nature's way of eliminating the sick. Today we keep alive those who need constant attention until the day they die.
Mr. Binyan, are you saying that we should go back to the survival of the fittest?
No. But I believe there must be a quality to a life. Today we keep alive the severely handicapped. We say that they have a right to live. And then we lock them away. We don't want to see them, don't want to be reminded of them. Those that can be helped should be helped by each one of us. Those condemned to a vegetable existence, we should think twice about.
But the court has already heard that underneath this new educational psychologist, Janice was making vast improvements. She could have even had a perfectly normal baby.
You are clinically misguided. Janice's condition was incurable. Any baby she had might have been much more mentally subnormal than the mother.
Yes, well, I have facts and figures, Mr. Binyan. An American professor, A.G. Wilder, followed up 50 cases of the syndrome that Janice suffers from. This is a review that lasted 8 years, and he came to the conclusion there is no good evidence that this condition is hereditary. Only twice has the syndrome turned up in the next generation.
And I can quote you half a dozen experts who say the risk is very high.
But on this basis, all parents should stop having children.
What do you mean?
Look, from what you're saying, if a perfectly normal couple has an abnormal baby, then you're suggesting no normal couple should have babies.
No. Well, we use medicine to cure. All I am saying is we should use preventive medicine to balance the order of things.
But a woman's body is made to produce babies. You denied that right to young Janice Scott.
I advised the mother it would be best.
You deliberately confused a simple woman in order to carry out your fascist theories of the survival of the fittest.
I have been in medicine all my life. Life is of the utmost importance to me. I wouldn't be a doctor otherwise. But I do believe there must be a quality to a life. You talk here in emotional generalities about a woman's body being made to produce, to procreate the species. If there is any chance that a highly abnormal baby should be born, then I do not believe in that right.
Over 50 cases, only twice was that syndrome passed on.
Dr. J.M. Glemm studied 8 cases. In 7 of those cases, severely handicapped children were born. If you don't believe me, I'll call Dr. Glenn and bring him into court.
No, there's no need, Mr. Binyan. I just wanted to find out how strongly you feel about all this. So strongly, in fact, you wouldn't stoop so low as to ask for something as simple as the girl's mother's consent.
I had her consent.
But you felt you had a moral obligation to carry this operation through.
Yes, I did.
And what would you have done if Mrs. Scott had understood what you were going to do and refused permission?
She did understand. Had she refused, I would have tried to persuade her.
But you didn't have time for that, did you, Mr. Binyan? You had 15 minutes of your time. You got her to sign that form and her daughter to sign that form to consent to an operation they knew nothing about. Then you went off to your operating lists. You played at God, Mr. Binyan, didn't you?
I have seen families with 2 and 3 severely mentally handicapped children. You see their parents worn out, not understanding, often the children suffering. Perhaps they'll live until they're 30. And right up until the end, they might have to have everything done for them. Their parents devote their lives to their children. The one fear they have is that they might die before their children. All this suffering on both sides. For what end? To give every human being the right to procreate the species? I think it is too high a price to pay.
And that's the reason you went ahead without the mother's permission.
I had her permission. I was trying to answer your charge of fascist.
No more questions, my lord.
Now, during this case, there's been much contentious discussion on the ethics of preventive medicine. And you may feel that your judgment on this should be a factor in coming to your verdict. However, the moral and ethical aspects of this case, of this operation, are not the business of this court. What you have to decide is very simple. Did Dr. Stone and Mr. Binyan act in full faith that they had obtained the proper consent from Mrs. Scott to operate? Now, the operation did take place. Mrs. Scott did sign the consent form. Those are facts. However, Mrs. Scott says that neither the doctor nor the surgeon described the true nature of the operation to her. In fact, she claims that they deliberately deceived her. Her daughter, Janice, was not fit to give evidence. Now, you must take into consideration the emotional strain on Mrs. Scott. The fact that when she was visited by a social worker, she, Mrs. Scott, was made to believe that Janice was getting much better. Now, you have to decide if, under that impression, Mrs. Scott could no longer accept responsibility for the operation. Did she, in fact, transfer that responsibility to the accused? Now, if you believe that Dr. Stone and Mr. Binyan did collude to perform this operation without Mrs. Scott's consent, then you must not hesitate but to bring in a verdict of guilty, even if it means ruining their careers. That is, if you believe that the prosecution have proved their case beyond reasonable doubt. Now, should you have reasonable doubt, then you must return a verdict of not guilty. Now, members of the jury, will you kindly retire to consider your verdict?
Court will rise.
Will the foreman of the jury please stand? Just answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached your verdicts upon which you're all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the accused, James Edward Binyan, guilty or not guilty of assault, occasioning actual bodily harm, of Janice Scott?
Not guilty.
Do you find the accused, Dr. Fiona Stone, guilty or not guilty of inciting an offence on Janice Scott?
Not guilty.
Mr. James Binyan and Dr. Fiona Stone left the court with a clear character. The jury in this case was composed of members of the general public. Cameras will return to bring you another leading case in the Crown Court.